Hi, and welcome to the Millionaire Marathon series of the SuccessPaTh show. I'm your host, Violet Dietrich, and I am extremely honored about our guest today. And we have Joseph Aaron Giglietti, and Joseph Aaron is known as the go-to guy to create high performance and extremely effective results in your life. After going broke and homeless 3 times with his wife and 3 kids in his pursuit to launch a nonprofit to change the world, Joe was heartbroken, exhausted, and angry at God and the world. Bitter Joe decided to go all in on discovering the truth about success at the convergence of the world of wealth, freedom, and impact. After a roller coaster of emotion and more failures and successes, within just a few years, Joe now owns a multi-million-dollar business, lives in an ornate mansion, is a best-selling author, also a world-class speaker and an undefeated mixed martial arts fighter. And now he's a highly sought-after leader in the entrepreneur community. Joe speaks internationally to help audiences everywhere break past their self-imposed limitations and become the best versions of themselves, and most of all, live a life of impact and freedom. Welcome, welcome, Joe.
What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for the nice introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, I love that. I'm so glad that you provided that. It almost brought me to tears about your story. And like I was telling you earlier, that's exactly what this show is about. But can I be honest with you, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I heard that you were on Boxer with another podcast show host, and you were pumping him up. You know, you called him up right before he had an important event, and you were asking him for his war cry, and I didn't get that from you, so I'm a little jealous.
Well, sorry about that. It didn't hit me. I'm on semi-vacation this week, so forgive me.
No, and I so appreciate your time. Again, I'm so honored that you're here, and God is blessing you so much. You told me you're about to make $20 million in revenue, so praise God for that. But of course, it didn't start there. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to the path that you're on today?
Well, how many of you have a vision of something you want to do for God? Or at least maybe you don't know what it is, but you know, I was made for more than what I'm currently living, right? And for me, Violet, it was like, I knew there was this vision I had for a ministry to help students. And my wife and I both had the same vision, very powerful, direct direction from God to achieve this great thing and start this movement of students. And so we moved right near St. Louis, Missouri to the Illinois side, a little place called Granite City, Illinois. And we're like, we're going to change the world and we're going to start right here. Any world changers listening right now? Woo, right? It's like that was our deal. And so our passion was to make an impact and to do what God had called us to do and to live it out. And when we started living that out, we were broke. And have you ever tried to do something great while you were broke? Like, we were so broke that we found students to help, but we wouldn't have enough gas money to drive across town to go help the student.
Yeah.
And you start to wonder, why does money stop us from doing the thing that God called us to do? That's very frustrating, because we're told in the Bible that our Father owns the cattle of 1,000 hills.
Come on.
That we are royalty, right?
Yes.
That my God will supply all your needs according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus.
Right.
And you're like, okay, I believe it. Let's go. But then how many of you would say that money is a limitation on the impact that you want to make on the world right now?
So true.
And that is a contrast that perplexes the modern Christian brain. And for me, we fought through it. We tried to do the best we can. And eventually we started having a lot of success. And you would think that once the ministry starts having a lot of success, the thing that you were called to do, that it's all going to kind of like work out. But here's the problem. The more success we had, the more students' lives we were impacting, the more it cost us. And so I was trying to take care of my family of 5, 3 kids, my wife and I. and the movement. And it was this constant juggling between mission and money. Like, oh, I need money to live. Oh, I got some money. Cool. Let's go do the mission. Do the mission. Mission grows. Need more money. Go to make the money. The mission isn't happening as much, right? And then it's like, once you get the money, you go. And it's like, is this how it's supposed to be?
Sounds exhausting.
Yes, it was exhausting. And we went homeless 3 times trying to do that. And by homeless, I don't mean like I was living at my grandma's house. No, I mean, and not that that's not bad, but we were alone in that area and we were living out of a hotel. I didn't have a job. I was an entrepreneur. So I was trying to like put a deal together to make $55 that day to pay for the hotel bill that night. And if we didn't get the hotel bill, we had nowhere to sleep. In the car, you know? And so after, man, between 7 to 10 years of that, I was spiritually exhausted, depressed, overwhelmed, and angry at God. Because I'm like, I'm doing what you told me to do. We're having success at what you told me to do. But money, or I should say, the lack of money is stopping me.
Yeah.
Is that real enough for you? Because that was my reality. Yeah. And I believe that God failed me. I believe that God forsook me. I believe that God, not really me as much as the kids who we were called to serve. And so broke, busted, and disgusted, I finally gave up. I didn't have any more energy. I had to take care of my family and I just couldn't do it anymore. So we moved to Florida. And when I moved to Florida, I said, I'm going to figure out money. Because the one thing I realized is whatever's going on in the world, whether it's a church, whether it's Samaritan's Purse, whether it's a Christian college, people who try and do things in the kingdom, they all accept offerings. But Christians get weird about money. You're not allowed to talk about it. If you talk about having a lot of money, then you're like a prosperity preacher. But if you talk about not having a lot of money, you're like, well, don't you trust God? And so there's this, it's neither one nor the other. And so we're afraid to talk about it. And so can we talk about it today? Because I feel like I got an answer.
Let's talk about it. Come on,
Let's talk about it. Right? So I got to, excuse me one second.
Sure.
I got to Florida and I said, well, I have to make a decision. The way I want the world to work is not how it works. And so I can either give up, number one. I could keep yelling into the sky and screaming at God that the world shouldn't work this way. Or I can say, this is the way the world works. How do I align my theology with the reality of the way the world works?
Right.
And for me, it was option 3 because I wanted to make a difference. And I said, money has something to do with this. How do I figure it out? So I started figuring out money. And I'll just take you 2 years. I'll fast forward you through the whole thing. It took a few years. And after a couple of years, we don't have time in this show, but after a few years, I figured it out, quote unquote. And I was able to do my first 7-figure year. And then it just keeps going up from there. Now we have 7-figure days.
Wow, amazing.
Just insane. But when I got to the end, I realized that I was sitting in my first mansion, which I wanted to live in a mansion because I wanted to prove to my kids that if you live by the right principles, you can create any world you want.
Wow.
And to say that again, if you live by the right principles, you can create any world you want.
Come on.
Because you do believe that we're made in the image of God, right?
Amen. Yes.
And it's like, what do we know about God when he tells us? The first thing he tells you about you is that you were made to be like him. And God said, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. And so in the image of God created he him. Right. And it's like, well, what do we know about God in Genesis chapter 1? And it's only one primary thing. We know that God is the creator.
Yes.
And so if he made us to be like him, then he made us to create.
Yes.
And if he made us to create, then the next question is, well, what did God make? And the answer is God made worlds.
Wow.
And did you know that you make your world?
That's good and bad.
Yes. Right. You make your world with your beliefs about what it has to be.
Right.
That's why Jesus said things like, if you can believe, all things are possible to him that believes. The reason we don't pursue making the world that we desire is because we don't believe that we can make the world we desire. But you don't believe you can make the world you desire because you don't know how he made you to be. And you don't believe him when he told you who you are. You're a creator and you make worlds. I wanted to show my kids that they could make the world the way they wanted it to be. Now, not outside of the bounds and limitations that God's already set, within those bounds, within those, that's what the book's about. It's all the principles for how to create the world you want, how to create the world, how to join God in his creation of a better world. Right.
Amen.
And so we move into our first mansion. I was showing my kids that they could do it. And I was standing in the master bathroom of my mansion, like, God, I hadn't figured it all. I hadn't put all the pieces together in that moment, in that stage yet. I said, God, I got really angry. I said, you never let me down. But why'd you let those kids down? You told me to do it, and then you just left me there. I said, I don't understand. I did everything you told me to do. And I felt the prompting of God come back to me right away. Right as soon as I said that, I said, I did everything you told me to do. And God spoke back and he said, you didn't even do the first sentence.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? Because I hadn't heard the voice of God or felt the prompting of God really in years, because I was so bitter. I was so angry. I was so frustrated. And I was just like, forget you. I'm doing it myself. So when I came full circle, I'm like, first thing, what is the first thing? And I was like, so I looked up in the Bible. I'm like, what is the first thing God ever said to man?
Yeah.
And the first thing God ever said to humanity was, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. I now call this God's 4-step plan to change the world. When I held my daughter was my firstborn. I have 3 children. When I held my daughter for the first time, I remember holding her, Violet, and I was like looking at her, but I didn't want to say anything yet, because I wanted the first thing I said to be heavy, to be meaningful. I wanted to give her guidance from the very start. And so when I looked at my daughter for the first time, the first words I spoke to her were very meaningful. And I was reminded of that as soon as I read that scripture. You see the setting as it's been set in Genesis chapter 1, and God creates the heavens and the earth, and then he steps in by his spirit into the world, and he speaks light and darkness and water here and land here and this here and that here, and he sets the whole environment, the whole structure, and everything in the world is set up until this one final piece when God does something different and he bends to the earth. And with his hands, unlike any other part of his creation, he forms man from the dust of the earth. And you can imagine, if you were there seeing that setting, that the angels must have been peering over one another's shoulders and pushing past to try and see what the God of the universe was doing, bent down on the ground. And one angel must have looked at another angel, Violet, and said, what does it look like? Who is it? What's he? How is it? And so one of the angels, as God breathed breath into mankind for the first time, must have turned around and said, what is it? Who's it look like? What is it? He goes, it looks like, it's like him.
Wow.
Like him who? Him.
Right.
And they're like, confused. What is this? And then, what does he say? Of all the things that God could have chosen in that moment, see, we don't pay attention to it. We just think it's about sex or procreation. And it is to a degree, but it's deeper than that. It says, be fruitful. So what's fruitful? See, if you'll live this out, your life will change. If you see the Bible in light of God's first sentence, your understanding will change. Because fruitfulness is what I produce out of my own efforts. And that all us entrepreneurs out here, we buy productivity journals, right? Why? So we can produce more. Well, where's produce department? What's that? Fruit. It comes from Genesis 1. What am I producing with the time, effort, and energy that I have in my own body? Many people are afraid to produce or afraid to choose what to produce because they're afraid of failure. So they produce very little. Why? Because they don't believe. What don't they believe? They don't believe who he is, and they don't believe who he made them to be.
Wow.
So the first step is I have to decide. God didn't tell me what to produce. He just told me to produce. So he wants me to produce something of value in the world that the world is willing to trade me for. Somebody said money doesn't grow on trees. Yes, it does. Money grows on trees. Because I'm looking out on my 2 water slides and cliff out here. If I could show you in our second mansion, I'm not buying any more mansions. I proved my point to my kids. All right. There's palm trees right next to my swimming pool. You know what grows on the palm trees? Coconuts.
Fruits.
Yeah. Now take the coconut. Let me ask you a question. Could I go sell that coconut to somebody? Be like, hey, you give me $1 for that? Yeah. Why? Because money grows on trees. So something of value, we know it's valuable. Why? Because some other human in the earth is willing to trade us for it. That's how we know it's valuable. If no one will trade us for it, nobody wants it. Nobody wants it, it's not valuable. Okay?
Right.
Now, watch this. The way most people do this is they get a job, and that's totally cool. You've just decided to partner with somebody who is producing, and you've decided to help them make that production, and they've agreed to give you a certain portion or piece or dollar per hour or salary or whatever it is to help them in the production of that thing. Cool. God's pleased. You are now producing. This is why laziness is one of the 7 deadly sins. It's like you were made to produce. Am I doing okay, Violet? I want to show you the 4-step plan. Okay. I don't know if you want to interrupt and ask questions, feel free. Once you're producing, most people stop there. They're like, okay, I'm producing, I'm done. God didn't stop at be fruitful. The next thing he said was multiply.
Come on.
Well, how do you multiply? Answer. You have to reinvest the fruit that you're producing from your own efforts into the ground. You have to risk what you've used your time, effort, and energy. You have to risk that because the focus has to change from fruit to trees. Because when I start multiplying, now it's not just, I don't just produce fruit from my own efforts. I now produce fruit from the efforts of other trees. And my focus is no longer how much fruit can I produce. It's now how many trees can I produce.
Right.
This is the first step in leadership. Because you are capable of producing more than your time, energy, and even money is able to produce if you'll follow the principle. What do you got to do? Every time you multiply, you have to trust God. Why? Because you have to, sow seed, right? You have to literally take of your production, risk it. You put it in the ground and you cover it up. If you didn't live on this earth and somebody wanted to explain to you, this is how we get more food. We put it in the ground and we cover it up with dirt. Does that sound dumb? It sounds dumb, right? That doesn't make, why would that even work? You have to trust that the law of God will work again, that God is consistent and trustworthy, and that the process works if you follow the principle. Somebody say, follow the principle, right? So now you invest. Now, if you invest more seed, do you get more trees or less trees?
More trees.
He that scatters much gathers much, and he that scatters little gathers little, right? So now you're multiplying, you're getting trees. What happens when you get a lot of trees? What's the next step? Most people are like, especially in Christianity, we're like, okay, when do I have enough? Joe, when's enough enough? Well, when did God say enough was enough? He said, watch it now, fill the earth.
Yeah.
What? I got enough for me. I ain't asking about you. Fill the earth. If you've made the decision to produce something good in your life, then it should be good enough to expand and share with others. Now you're multiplying. When do I stop? When everyone on earth has experienced the goodness that you're creating.
Wow.
If you have a message, when everyone on earth has experienced the message that you're sharing. If you're creating pens, when everyone has experienced the good pen that you're creating. If you create a mouse, when everyone, that's when you stop. The answer is you don't stop because you were made for this. You were made to produce enjoying God and creating do you know the world would be worse if there weren't entrepreneurs? The world would be worse if we weren't trying to make the world better. The world would be worse if we weren't creatively trying to solve the problems that we currently have. Do you know we live in like the greatest world we've ever lived in? Like we got, and look, I don't even know where you live. I live in Florida.
Texas.
Like we live hundreds of miles away, and yet we're able to video conference and share this across the world. Why? Because there were people, there were creators, there were people made in the image of God who decided that their own income was not what they were going for. They were going to make the world better. Why? Fill the earth.
Right.
Now watch this. Last thing he says is subdue it. Why would he say that? Because if the world is full of people made in his image, and some are good and some are evil. Did you know there's people who are obeying the principles of God? They decided to produce something that the world will trade them for. They are reinvesting their fruit as seed to multiply. Then they're filling the earth. By the way, when you fill the earth, you know what that is? That's buying the land next door so that you have more place for trees. And then buying the land next door after that. It's expansion. Now I'm not just buying trees, I'm buying other orchards. I'm buying land to plant more orchards. I'm growing. I'm expanding. I'm filling the earth. By the way, look at nature. It all tries to fill the earth. Doesn't it? Don't the weeds try and expand? The trees plant their stuff, expand. Why? It's doing it on automation. We have will. We decide to get lazy and stop. We decide not to obey the principles of God and stop. But God told us to fill the earth. Now watch what happens. If a bunch of human beings made in the image of God are each trying to expand in what they've created, eventually my orchard is going to come in contest with somebody else's orchard to the same land. Cardi B has a message for the world that she's trying to expand. Jake Paul has a message for the world he's trying to expand. Meanwhile, preachers have a message to the world they're trying to expand. Entrepreneurs who are producing good things have a message they're trying to expand. Entrepreneurs who are just money grubbing and putting out terrible products out there just to cheat people are putting their message out there in the world to expand. And so God says, eventually, the way I created this world is your message and your value is going to come in conflict with someone else's expansion. He recognizes it. Because when he says subdue it, I had to look it up in Hebrew because I'm like, subdue it, that sounds militaristic. What is that? So I looked it up in Hebrew, and it is. It's militaristic. It literally means to force to bend the knee, to force to submit.
That's awesome.
So God didn't just tell us to produce something. He told us to reinvest that which we're producing so it multiplies. And once we multiply, never stop until the whole world has experienced the goodness we're creating. And then he warns us, in the process of your expansion, you're going to come against some adversity because other people are going to resist the goodness that you're creating in the world as you follow my plan. And his message to those of you facing adversity is this. Are you ready for it? Win. Fight and win. That's God's 4-step plan to change the world. And it's the first thing he says to us. And every time we operate, Violet, in a way that believes that there's some amount of scarcity that's stopping us, in a way where we're like, oh my gosh, am I making too much money? Or, oh my gosh, I'm comfortable just doing this right here. It's like, it's none of that. It's not about my comfort. Although I believe God gives us comfort. Obviously, he gave us taste. We don't need that to live. He lets us see color. We don't need that to live. He lets us hear different melodies and sounds. We don't need that to live. Why? He's a God of plenty and abundance, an overwhelming blessing beyond any thought can imagine. His ways are above our ways, as the heavens are above the earth. So it's like, no. The point is this, like, are we being fruitful? Have I really decided to create something to change the world? Or am I chasing a buck?
Yeah,
and I have decided to create something to change the world. And you got to expand and you got to fight for it, because that's what God called you to do. You were made for this.
Yes, amen. And Joe, I know this is true because even, was it your 11-year-old daughter that was doing webinars, and she's a best-selling author also? Yes. At 11 years old, such a young lady. So if she can do it, if Joe can do it, then you can do it.
Yes.
So Joe, we only have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure to let people know about your Accelerate My Revenue and how they can opt into this?
Yeah. So my business partner and I, we help people who are interested in speaking, who are interested in stepping into their purpose, living in the peace, um, Hebrew shalom concept, in the peace of, hey, I'm fulfilling my purpose. I'm putting my message out to the world and showing people how to step into their power so that they can be a force for good in the world. I believe God is looking for people who are ready to fight back against everything every lie that culture or our upbringing or the dysfunctions we have in our life. Like, somebody needs to fight back. And the people who change the world tend to be the people with the microphones. You look at someone like Winston Churchill, who fought back against the Nazis and awakened really two nations, of course, England, and then of course the United States, in order to fight back against evil. And we're in a time where we need people who understand the power of persuasion and the power of their voice and the power of words to step into this social media generation and get attention and shake some things up. Somebody say, shake it up, right?
Shake it up.
Accelerate My Revenue is really about how do I get out there, get my voice out there, and do it in such a way where, I mean, our clients, they're typically doing 6 and 7 figure days using virtual events and on the stage. And so that's a far cry from when I was trying to make $55 a day.
For sure.
But, you know, it's, when it all comes down to it, it's all in the Bible. All the principles are there. All of those things are there in the Bible. But it's like, how do we apply that in a modern application? So in Accelerate My Revenue, Eileen and I are going to like spend 5 days with you. And every day we're going to speak for an hour, and we're going to help you shift and make decisions about what you're going to create, what you're going to produce, and how to turn your production into 6 and 7 figure days. And then let me ask you, if you can make 6 figures a day once a month, would that help you make a bigger impact in your local community?
Oh, yeah.
With the ministries and churches that you're looking to serve, right? Would that help you give more to the causes that you believe in? Would that give you the freedom to travel to the places you want to travel to make the difference? And it's like, yes, money is a part of God's plan to change the world. And so get in the game, and we want to help you with that at acceleratemyrevenue.com. Just go there, opt in, there's a free ticket there. If you want to, there's a VIP ticket as well. But yeah, we're super excited to be sharing our message with the world.
I love that. It's so exciting. And it's also awesome to see you and Eileen go back and forth and share from both of your experiences and the massive value that you all bring, and, you know, everything that you've learned through your journey. So amazing, amazing. Find out more about how to get 7-figure days through biblical principles. We'll make sure to put the link in the description so that people could they click on that and go directly to it. And Joe, where can people follow you on social media? Where's the best
Instagram spot? At Joseph Aaron Official. That's just like they're spelled in the Bible, at Joseph Aaron Official on Instagram. And yeah, I believe it's the same on Facebook too. So, yep.
Awesome. And one last question that I ask all my guests, because this is about basically broke Joe, the way you described him, homeless, frustrated at God, about to throw in the towel. They may be even, you know, depressed and in such severe debt that they don't know what to do. What's a few words of encouragement that you can share with them?
Well, I've been there. I wish I could go back to him. There's a couple of things I'd probably say to him, but one of the first things I'd probably say is that, and this is going to be hard to hear, it would have been hard for me to hear, but the truth will help you more than condolences. So here's the truth. Lack is a lie. At every moment, even homeless and suicidal, sitting in a country and in suites in Fairfield Heights, Illinois, I had everything I needed to go to the next level. It wasn't a lack of resources that was ever my problem. It was a lack of resourcefulness. I didn't believe that I had what I needed. And that's a place of desperation and frustration, because you're like, God, I thought you were going to give me everything I need. I didn't believe I had everything I need. So here's what happens. When you don't believe you have everything you need, you don't seek. And when you don't seek, you don't find. When you don't believe that you have everything you need, you don't knock, because you don't believe the door will be open to you. When you don't believe that you have everything you need, you don't ask. And when you don't ask, you don't receive. And so ultimately, like Jesus said, as hard as it is to hear, This is what I would tell broke me. I would say, you have everything you need right now. And I'll give you a little hint. You're like, where? Look at my bank account. I don't have any money in it. Neither did I. But I had people. People are the answer. People. I had access to multi-million-dollar deals. Same people I'm doing multi-million-dollar deals with right now, I had access to them then. I just didn't believe I did. And so I didn't ask. I didn't look. Like, if you believe that you're overwhelmed and you can't handle anymore, then that's how you operate. But if you'll believe, I have everything I need, I'm going to get resourceful, I'm going to look for a deal, I'm going to find a way, right? And then you go start talking to people, figure out a way to add value to the people in your network. And there is so much money there, you can't even handle it. Okay. So just say like this, say, I have everything I need.
Everything I need.
Now operate in that belief and you'll be out of it in 30 days. Facts.
Amen. So good, Joe. And thank you again. Super honored that you're here, taking time out of your vacation time to be here for the audience and encourage them in this way. And to the audience, thank you for being here. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, like and share this episode. Not only can we bring you more content like this in the future when you support us, but this message that Joe's bringing could really encourage and help a lot of the people that you know right now. So we love you. God bless you. And we'll see you on the next episode. God bless.